everybody. Welcome back into the show tonight. He's Carson Cunningham. I am Brian Keating. As we, we're getting close to football season.
A week closer.
Right
around the corner.
I'm telling you. So, hey, let's talk Big 12 football. And we've done so many of these things team-wise. I kind of want to get into some of the individual awards.
A lot of star power in the Big 12.
I mean, especially if you look at the offensive side of the football. So let's start like this. Prediction time. Who you got? Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year.
Well, whoever wins this usually wins the Big 12. So I'm really going off the board here with Baker Mayfield.
Oh, yes. I was thinking, who are you going to pick?
Shake and bake. He's going to be dancing in the end zone again, giving the shush to the Tennessee crowd like last year.
Yeah.
The guy's unbelievable. I mean, the big key for him is limiting turnovers. If they're going to win the Big 12 and him win the Offensive Player of the Year, in 2 games, he had over 2 turnovers or more in 2 games. Tennessee, which they had a tough time winning. Baker led them back in that game after throwing 2 interceptions. And he had over 2 turnovers against Clemson. The 2 games, they were in the most trouble, and, of course, the game they lost in the Final Four. But he's unbelievable. He's the closest thing we'll ever see to a Johnny Manziel. He's just what the doctor ordered for Bob Stoops' quarterback. I think he takes it home.
I call him kind of like Colt McCoy. He's not quite as fast as Johnny Manziel, but point taken, big-time player. He's the favorite, and if OU wins the Big 12 championship, I think he's going to win it. I went a little bit different.
Spiced it up a bit?
I spiced it up just to be different.
Okay.
How about Samaje Perine? Samaje the Hulk. And I think there's a chance OU runs the ball more this year. There are a little bit more questions at wide receiver. I think they want to keep Baker Mayfield healthy. He had 2 concussions at the end of last season. They're going to have a big offensive line. Samaje Perine is going to be the all-time leading rusher in the history of Oklahoma football. I think there's a chance a guy goes for like 1,800 yards.
Even with Joe Mixon,
yes, he's that good. I don't think Joe Mixon's going to take as many. Look, it's probably Baker Mayfield. I wanted to give a different.
I can't hate against Samaje Perine. The guy is going to probably go down as the greatest rusher in OU history by the numbers.
I know. Defensive Player of the Year. This one's a little more difficult because Baker Mayfield's such a big favorite in that category if OU wins Big 12 championship. This one's a little different.
I wanted to pick Jordan Thomas, the cornerback from Oklahoma, but I'm not going to pick him just because I don't know if he's going to be on the field. He's been suspended a few times, had some issues coming in this year.
Been a knucklehead.
Bob says he's playing, so you got to go with that. He had 5 interceptions last year.
Really good.
He's the best player on their defense, but I'm going to go in chalk here. I'm going Malik the Freak, Malik Jefferson, the linebacker.
Well, there's a lot to like about that kid.
There is, and part of winning these awards is having the right hype around you. He's the preseason favorite, and if he just does what he always does, make a bunch of tackles, make a bunch of plays for the Texas defense, which will probably be on the field quite a bit if their quarterback situation is not sorted out.
Yep.
I think he's a clear front runner, and as long as he doesn't get hurt, I think he's taking it home.
He's the preseason favorite for all the Big 12 riders, and he is a freak. He's going to be all over the field. I think stats, though, win a lot of these awards. So I'm going Josh Caraway. He is a defensive lineman from TCU. He had 9 sacks a season ago. He could be more than that this year. If you're a guy that gets 10, 11 sacks, it's going to be hard not to vote for you. Malik Jefferson's a great player, but he's not going to have 100 tackles, and he's not going to get 10 sacks. And I think sometimes it becomes more difficult to win awards that way.
It's true. We've seen a lot of great defensive linemen in the past few years. Emmanuel Ogbah, Sean Oakman.
That's exactly right.
They get a lot of attention here in the Big 12.
I think Josh Caraway is going to be one of those guys. You put up big numbers, he's going to have them. You got a chance to win the award. All right, one more. OU and OSU-wise, who's a guy that we're not necessarily talking about, but everyone's going to know their name at the end of the year?
I need spell check on this one.
I know who you're picking, and I can't even believe you're going to try to write this down.
I'm going to write the whole thing out. Eric Striker's gone. He was the heart and soul of that Oklahoma team. But more than that, he was their best pass rusher. He really was able to get OU off the field in key passing situations, time in, time out. And his replacement is basically a game of Scrabble. Obaniah Okoronkwo. Obo, like for short. Just call him Obo.
Obo.
He's been lighting it up in preseason camp. He's been hitting the quarterback, getting after the quarterback. I think this guy's going to make a lot of plays and make a lot of people remind them, oh, yeah, that's what the pass rusher's supposed to do. That's what Eric Striker's supposed to do. He's gone. Obo's the new guy.
He could be. I mean, he's going to get his opportunity. I think it's going to be a guy for OSU, Jalen McCleskey. He's going to be the fastest dude. Did I spell that right?
McCleskey's hard too. That looks right to me.
I think it could have an
I
E
was
at the
busy
end,
studying
might not
oboe
be.
over here.
Look, Jalen McCleskey, he's going to have a ton of catches at OSU. He's going to be there really another deep threat on the other side of James Washington. And people are going to have to cover James Washington because he'll torch you. Jalen McCleskey, 3 touchdowns a season ago. He did catch 29 balls as a true freshman.
Big punt return against
Big
Tech.
punt return against Texas Tech for a touchdown, really got them back in the ballgame. I think he's going to have a huge year, especially with Marcel Aitman out the first half of the year. I think he's going to get buku opportunities to make plays. He's going to make them, and he's going to be there for a while.
He got overshadowed a little bit by James Washington. As a true freshman, when McCleskey came in, was running the football and into rounds. They use him in a lot of different ways. I think he'll be dynamic.
And he wears number 1.
Switch to the you know.
Which means he's got confidence.
Yes.
If you're wearing Des Bryant's number, you got confidence.
They don't just give out the numero.
No. For Carson, I'm Brian. He's crashing the board.